Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute Film Club. This week we will be looking at the 1983 epic Scarface, directed by Brian De Palma. It tells the story of Tony Montana, a Cuban immigrant working his way up the Florida drug ring. Florida drug ring? Drug ladder? Pursued by an undying passion for more money, power and respect, we see him turn on everyone he knows and cares about until he is left a defiant and lonely tyrant. This is the first Brian De Palma film we've had on the list, and I'm ashamed to say, the first one I've ever actually seen properly. What strikes me about this film, I mean aside from all the violence and such stuff, we'll get onto that later, is the fact that it feels slightly old-fashioned for a film made in the 1980s. This film is a loose remake of the 1932 pre-code gangster flick of the same name, and Brian De Palma here is using some of the same camera movements and framing techniques that we associate more with films from the 1930s and 40s. There are two moments early on in the film where he uses a camera move that is clearly lifted from the opening sequence of Orson Welles' A Touch of Evil. And also you can see influence from Hitchcock as well. During a rather gruesome murder scene in a bath, the camera pans out of the room, through the wall, and back down onto the sunny sidewalk below, before returning back to the same room after the deed is done. This shows a playfulness and also a great knowledge of cinema, which only makes this film all the more enjoyable to watch. Now, I said that this film felt old-fashioned for the 1980s, and what I mean by that is that it feels timeless. It could very well have just been shot yesterday and set in the 1980s, because the themes of the film tie in so well to the 1980s social and political climate. It feels like a period piece. The music as well, by Giorgio Moroder, is synth fantastic. All the way from the disco-y tackiness to the big, expansive soundscapes. Now apparently Universal have been desperate to re-release this film with a rap soundtrack, and thankfully De Palma has vetoed it so far. This is the perfect score for the film. A full-on orchestra would just tip it too much into the homage territory, and a rap soundtrack would just water down all the capitalist vibes and jabs that the film makes. Enough said, Universal. Moroder stays. In the role of Tony Montana, we have a career-defining performance from Al Pacino. True, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to hear what he says. I mean, it's mainly just swearing, but he does tend to sound a little bit like Chico Marx.
What do you want?
Watch the door for a few minutes, and don't let anyone in without the password.
All right, what is it?
Swordfish is the password, do you understand?
Okay, I got it.
Well, what is it?
Password.
Swordfish! Swordfish!
Right, the swordfish, the swordfish. Piazza muscolo in the room per lo faccia così pazzo.
Aside from that, he manages to encapsulate everything about this character and gives a performance that is both honest and mesmerising. By his side, we have newcomer of the time, Michelle Pfeiffer, who apparently De Palma and Pacino didn't actually want in the role, to start out with at least. And let's be honest here, she's not actually given a lot to do, and in the end, just disappears and is never heard of again. It is such a shame that she isn't given at least one big scene, because in a film that lasts nearly 3 hours, I think it would have been easy just to squeeze one in. On writing duties, we have Oliver Stone. And when he was writing this film, he was coming off a massive cocaine addiction, and it clearly shows on the screen. Here is a man really working through some issues. We get some incredibly elaborate death sequences, including one that even made me gasp, involving a helicopter and a length of rope. Nasty. But I think what Stone is trying to do here is to allow the audience into the drug world. He paints with broad strokes and bright colours and makes this a very theatrical world, and one that really builds to a huge climax, a shootout at Tony Montana's luxury mansion. And this is why I think this film works so well and why it has endured. There is something for everybody and can work on various different levels. You can read in it a commentary upon how outsiders are treated in our country. You could also see it as an analysis of the destructive power of love, or you can just sit there and enjoy the roller coaster of a man's rise and epic fall with a ton of blood splattered into the peasants standing in the front. But basically the story just boils down to 3 things: power, money and respect. But then doesn't everything? Hello, thank you for watching, and please remember to subscribe and to leave a comment down below if you completely disagree with me, or if you agree with me, give me a thumbs up.